Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Let's play. We'll start with game in 10 minutes per side. A rematch I'll accept, but I'm not going to offer. Not really in the mood for a rematch, but if my opponent wants one, then yeah. I mean, these were two great games. I thought my opponent played both games well, and I thought I played both games well. Black won both games because Black played the better game out of both of them. Both of them. Alright, so I'm going to say my opponent's not initiating a rematch request. So let's move into analysis mode. Here you can see the games. This game, was this a great game? You know, I said they were both great games. That really, if I got checkmated on move 13, um, it's a good game. It's a better than average game, maybe for my opponent. Not for me though. I don't like getting checkmated on move 13. I don't like getting checkmated. Period. A little bit of soda, George. A little bit of soda. So here you can see the game was very well played. We'll call this 80, and we'll call this 90. That's a strong game. I am going to finish this game against. The game's almost finished, but I like to do this to finish the game all the way through to checkmate. It anchors what you're talking about when you mean by what you mean. Anchors what you talk about when you mean accuracy. There's a couple ways to do this. I have the luxury of some time right now, but I think one way to do is we're threatening mate here. My opponent's going to exhaust some opportunities, and isn't rook to h1 not quite checkmate because white's rook blocks black's rook scope, so throw a check in here. This should do it. Alright. We'd like to see how did, given those extra, I think 5 moves or so, 6, 7 moves, how much did that affect accuracy, and what does that mean against other games that were accurate? But here we go. I'm going to pare this down to 3 lines and do 10 seconds. Alright. And like I said, the accuracy was high in this game. Why am I stalling? I'm stalling for some reason. Oh, because of this game. Alright. Alright. I won't play. We'll go to the stem game because that's how it was originally. And get the review going. Here we go. D4, D5, C4, Queen. So it's the Queen's Gambit. This is the semi-Slav, sometimes called the Slav. I'm not sure what the difference between those two is. And we have Knight F6, Book. E3 is Book. Bishop to G4 is not. I'm breaking out of Book. This move has multiple purposes. First of all, in a lot of Queen's Gambit games, and in the decline of Queen's Gambit, Black's gonna support the pawn on D5 with both the pawn on C6 and the pawn on E6, and that could leave, save for a move like Bishop G4 at the right time or Bishop F5 at the right time. That leaves Black's light squared bishop imprisoned by his own pawns. It can be very difficult to make this piece useful. And it's not the end of the world. A lot of openings for Black in response to the Queen's Gambit just deal with the fact that the bishop is lumpy. Is lumpy a right word? The bishop is stuck on, C8 or near to C8 for a while. I don't like that. I think Black can do better than that in the Slav, and maybe the Queen's QGD and Queen's Gambit decline's not quite as good because you can't go through the pawn. So I get my bishop out early. I'm attacking White's queen. I might get a concession like f3, and there's weak squares around Black's king. My opponent might play bishop e2, and I trade bad bishop for good bishop. Very common is knight to f3, and there's this pin here. That's not all that big of a deal in terms of pins. It can be broken very easily, but it's comforting that if I want to dump my light squared bishop, I can on f3 just about any time. And if not that, if f3 moves, then on whatever's on e2, or yes, praise be, on d1, should it be the queen, but more likely a minor piece on e2. So this pawn on g4 is just like, I view it as a way for Black to preemptively dump his light squared bishop. You see the knight comes to f3. It's a fine developing square under a bit of a pin right now, but it's not a very strong pin. It's going to go away soon. And bishop to e2 would be a great way to do that. Now here, I played e5, and it was a blunder. Look, here Black's move is pawn takes c4. I've played this position after pawn takes c4. I'm pretty sure. I mean, the idea is we're kind of going nana poo poo to White's light squared bishop. He's been waiting, and now on move 6 he goes into action on bishop b2. But we're going to play. We're going to play d takes c4. The bishop will capture, and then we're going to say we'll expand on the queen side with b5. The bishop will usually go right back to where he was. This time he went back to d3, and I'm sure that's fine. Let's see how the engine. What does the engine think about bishop e2? It says it's good. All right. Well, but you really, I mean, this is we're bullying this bishop around. We feel bad for the guy, except that he's an icon on a square. But no, seriously, the bishop waits to become active onto e2. Then I force him to perform duty on capturing c4, or else his side will be down a pawn. Once he gets to c4, he's thinking, I'm going to get this battery going with b3, c4. We're going to attack Black's king before he knows what hit him. But Black is just slightly faster with b5. The bishop must go back to e2. Or perhaps d3, as Torch showed. But it's a little bit of a little bit extra, as they say. Okay, now so instead of that, and I played that variation before. Instead of that, pawn to e5, I thought was fine. It looks like maybe pawn takes e5 gives Black more trouble than I had thought, than I had calculated. He says there's two really strong moves, either knight takes e5 or c takes d5. So we'll show that these are Torch moves. Knight takes e5 or c takes d5. That give Black some real difficulty. I want to calculate. Let's calculate one of them. So here with Black to move. Honestly, c takes d5. Here with Black to move, instead of e5, we're calculating d takes c4. Aha. e5 is already too late. So, like I said, this system of moves against Black's light squared bishop can be annoying. I think e5 makes sense here for Black. So we're slowly see the initiative run out. Alright, back to the game. So D takes C4 is better than E5. Black's blunder. We're consolidating in the center. Knight takes D5 might have been better here. E4. It's a strong move. We want to notice this pattern. Those of us who are intermediates or novices, beginners, and intermediates, we want to notice this pattern. A knight on F6. And really, it could be any knight on the C3, C6, F3, or F6 subterfuge. I've never said that word before, but it's like a subway sort of. But I'm not sure if the subterfuge is as large as a subway. But what I'm trying to say is these pieces are connected in some sort of symmetry. I don't know exactly. Point central or some sort of symmetry makes these pieces akin or kin. When we notice a knight that can and is protecting both of the two possible central pawns that any knight could protect. D5, D. This is structurally strong. That's all I'm saying here is that these three pieces are strong. That's part of why I played E4 to E5. The other part of it is that we're still working on getting this bishop traded for another piece. Although now this bishop's not looking so bad, but E4 to E5, that and time-wise, clockwise, this was predictable. I know I'm going to see knight to E5 after this. I make some of the thinking time my opponent makes some of the thinking time his. So knight to E5, bishop takes E2, right? So what's with bishop takes E2? Mostly, yes, we've gotten the bishop to a purposeful square. He's out and he's been developed and all that, but think about it, he doesn't actually have that many options. He's under attack once, twice, and then by X-ray thrice. So we dump him. He's still the bad bishop because of this central pawn connection on the light squares. This is still White's good bishop for having very little impediment in terms of his own pawns. So we dump him. We dump the bishop. We're now at this same colored bishops, sort of late mid-game. Queens are on the board, knights are on the board, there's a lot of pawns, a lot of stuff going on this board. One of Black's tactics should be to discover, where do I want to go from here? I want to trade my dark squared bishop for this crazy good knight for White. This crazy good knight that White has placed on E5. I could trade right away. There's some reasons I don't do that. First of all, D takes E5 scares my F6 knight away to where he can't be left without capture or block. Both in fleeing the protection of D5 and blocking the queen's protection of D5 lays the road or the travel for White to play knight takes D5, losing too much material. So that's out, and it's just ugly to have this pawn flee from a central square, and we might as well invite the D4 pawn in and make him tea and crumpets. So instead, I wanted to say, hey, I could win a pawn on E5 And I'd like to get this piece off the back rank. And I'd like to, actually, frankly, with this board, I'd like to lose the bishop and keep the knight. That's the most long-term part of this, is that this board is kind of good for knights when the central pawns are interlocked like this. You know, knights do well. I think it's part of the reason why my opponent chose to dump his outposted piece on d7. So I have this bishop, but it's, to be sure that this bishop is plenty strong in his own right on d6. So not to get too caught up in that. Queen takes d7, keeping, of course, the protection of f6, of the f6 knight on the d5 pawn. Queen to b5. Rook to d8. A little bit strange. It's a strange move. The computer wants rook to c8. Get on the open file. Yeah, no, that makes more sense. I don't know. I played d8 and for some reason. It turned out okay. I like a6. Black's approach to the position here is shown with the move a6. Black saying, okay, it's an equal game. How about I force your queen to move and gain just a little bit of space, not a lot of space, just a little bit of space on the queen side. And that space can grow with perhaps b5 should white backpedal to a4. White takes another move of tempo away from his own initiative by playing queen to b3. So a6 is really slight, really timid space gathering move. We're just improving black's position slightly and slowly. And then the queen swap was initiated. I take back with the king. With the queens off the board, the king is more able to venture and help protect. This game even attack. Not usually the prescribed method, but the king is well placed on d7. Helping to control key squares along the open c file. Black can put rook on c8 and exchange. If there comes to be white doubles rooks, or something, and then one of them captures on c7, then one of them captures on c8, the other black captures on c8, and white captures on c8, and then black again. We can withstand just about as much of an attack along the c file as could possibly be mustered, could possibly be made to bear against black. With this nice open c file, black's king is safe. We got a bishop of dark color squares. Alright, so this isn't a big deal. This isn't a big deal for us. I'm not exactly sure how many moves white's knight is away. 2 moves away from giving check to black's king, but that's through a protected piece, so this isn't a concern. And like I said, the c file can handle anything else the way what black has it set up, so this and this aren't concerns. A nice safe king on d7. He didn't need the castle, which I've been doing better on. I used to be sort of wimpy at castling, but now I'm doing better on that. But I still took time out to note that d7 is the proper placement for Black's king. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna here I could have done there's certain moves like maybe claiming the c file for start or whatever, but I thought I've been doing these pawn storms, and I'm usually doing the pawn storms early and while queens are on the board. But here I said I could try one of those pawn storms without queens on the board and see if I can learn, are they maybe different in a way that can help give me advantage, not only in this game but other games down the line. My opponent played f4, so that requires immediate attention, which I gave by way of e takes f4, ep is how you, I think that's how it's sometimes denoted. E takes f3 ep, sorry. E takes f3 ep. It's where the square exercising en passant on the victim lands. Importantly, folks, this can be botched up. The capture of at the end of an en passant capture takes place on either the 6th or the 3rd, and nowhere else. Okay, so now rook takes f3. I don't know. It's a game. It's a game. I was talking about the king being safe out of the pocket. Rappers talk about the pocket sometimes. Like, think of a song like Jesus Walks by Kanye West. I'm talking about the rhymes land really in the pocket. They're rhythmic and predictable. Some other rappers aren't quite in the pocket. Think of Aesop Rock. Doesn't rap quite in the pocket as much. Think of Eminem. Not, sometimes he's in the pocket. Of course, every rapper has to be in the pocket at some point. Sometimes not. Okay. Anyway, I digress. This is the king that he's not in his normal pocket. The black king is normally on e8, g8, or to some degree c8. But in a game with like a good deal of minor pieces and rooks are starting to take form, there's a contested setter. Okay, so maybe the queens aren't on the board, but e6 is not usually the safe place for a king in a board like this. It's just he isn't. In fact, but he in this particular board, he is. It's defying expectation, and I like that. The king on e6 is contributing to defense of certain key squares, and helping win his own game, like a pitcher hitting a home run in the National League. Okay, he's helping to win his own game. Knight to a4 is actually one of the. This is an accuracy, and I'll trade off my dark squared bishop. The issue here is that when the board opens like this, White has to spend. White will have to spend time consolidating all these pawns, especially e3 and c5. Look like they're targets for black, starting with the fact that black can try to fork the bishop at d2 with the pawn at c5. And it was the best move, so I felt comfortable to make that move. And here, if playing super quick, you might see the pawn and just grab it. Otherwise, full speed ahead, ludicrous speed, go! But Um, it's not a good move actually to grab the pawn. Maybe it's okay, but the bishop will capture on g7 with tempo. You place your rook to, push him back. It's a different thing, but I think the wise move was to capture on c3 and make sure that I saw b takes c3, leaves the c5 pawn both defenseless and indefensible. The c5 pawn is gone. Right? So now with white to move, it looks like black is a pawn ahead, menacing some more destruction. You can't even call this a pawn structure. We're talking about 4 pawn islands from 5 pawns. There's a lot of sitting ducks for black to target. Now black has 2 extra pawns, and the passed pawn on the b file, the passed pawn on the b file is killer. All right, so we can see that this game is over. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.